What's up guys? Welcome back to the channel Hand Waving. Your friend Naruto Addict 2.0 is here again with a brand new Naruto fanfic that's going to change everything. A story where Naruto is betrayed and banished. But destiny has bigger plans for him. From exile to emperor, this is the journey of power, strategy, and love. Today's fanfic is titled, What If Tsunade Became Naruto's Personal Sensei and Lived with Him? Part 1. It was another peaceful day in Konohagakure no Sato, well as peaceful as it can get for a village full of ninja that is. Let us draw our attention to one of the multitude of training areas within the village and focus upon the area in which one Uzumaki Naruto was currently training. After collapsing for the 10th time that day, Naruto decided that it was time for a break and wandered into the forest. After waking for some time, Naruto saw something which did not completely blend in with the whole forest setting. It was a gate, a big, gray gate, and it looked to have been there for a while too because vines and moss seemed to be growing on the thing. Now normally someone would just walk away after seeing what appeared to be a very suspicious looking object, but Naruto was far from normal. Approaching the gate curiously, Naruto saw that the gate did not connect to anything. Why somebody would build a gate in the middle of the forest he did not know. Looking closely upon the gate, he could make out the blurry inscription that was the kanji for gate or mon. He also noticed that upon the door right in the middle was an ofuda, or a talisman. Reaching out to touch the talisman, he was suddenly jerked back as he felt a strong pull from the gate. Wow, what's going on? Then he let out a scream of pain as he felt like he was being ripped apart. From a third-person perspective, we could see that Naruto was glowing with red chakra and that the gate seemed to be absorbing it. Because of the pain-induced haze that Naruto was in, he failed to notice as the talisman catch fire then disintegrate and that the gate was slowly opening. There was a bright flash and then the pain faded. Panting heavily, he tried standing up but failed. He fell like a ton of bricks. Thankfully though, two pillows saved him from what would have been a painful landing. Wait, how could there be pillows in the forest? Naruto thought. Propping on all fours, he saw that the pillows were in fact the endowments of a beautiful young girl who looked to be no older than 18. A girl that was currently waking up. Where am I? As she regained consciousness, she noticed two things. 1. There was a boy on top of her. 2. He was grabbing her. Noticing the trickle of blood coming from the boy's nose, her reaction was not pretty. Kaya, hentai. Immediately noticing her response, Naruto quickly lifted his hands from their previous position. Wait, it was an accident, I didn't mean to. His reply was cut short, however, cause getting punched in the face tends to do that. As he flew into a tree and before he passed out, all he could think was so soft. Suaku. This idea floated in my head for a while, decided to put on paper. Heh. Read and review PLS. Onagai. Tsunade Heim. Disclaimer. Look in prologue. Chapter 1. I'm 14, you old hag. Waking up from his peaceful slumber, Naruto noticed that it was already late into the afternoon and that he was still in the forest where he found that girl that came out of nowhere. Standing up, he decided that it was time to go home. After walking for a few meters, he stopped dead in his tracks when a voice from behind him called out, "Who are you?" Naruto whipped around to see that it was the girl from before. Hey, you're that girl from before. Why did you hit me all of a sudden? The girl rewarded his statement with a glare. Serves you right, pervert. I am not a pervert, it was an accident, okay? I suddenly got drained by this weird gate thing. There was a flash, and then you appeared. At the mention of the gate thingy, both boy and girl directed their gaze to a spot where it looked like an explosion had happened but found nothing. It's gone, Naruto said. What is? Said the girl. There was this big gate here a while ago. It was black and had a weird paper thingy on it. The girl directed a skeptical look to Naruto. I see, and this gate you speak of just vanished after you touched it? Yeah. A moment of silence passed as the two contemplated what to do. Naruto decided to break the silence by asking, by the way, what's your name? Isn't proper to say your name first before asking someone else's name? Oh, sorry. Naruto stood up and gleefully said, I'm Uzumaki Naruto, Uzumaki. The girl thought then he must be related to him. I'm Tsunade, the best and most beautiful kunoichi in all of Konoha. Kunoichi. You mean you're a ninja too? Naruto asked. That's right, well, I'm the best ninja and the future Hokage. An image appeared in Tsunade's mind, the image of the smiling face of a young boy. Oni-chan, my dream is to become Hokage. Seeing that Tsunade looked a bit sad, Naruto approached her and asked, Hey, are you okay? I just remembered something. Naruto started walking out of the area. Oi, where are you going? Naruto turned around and replied, I've got to go home, the genin examinations are tomorrow. Wait, do you mind if I walk with you? Not really. Tsunade stood up from her position and followed Naruto out of the area. About halfway before they reached the village, a figure dropped from the trees. Because Tsunade came from a time when Konoha was at war, her immediate reaction was to draw a kunai and face the newcomer. Who are you? When it turned out to be none other than the Sandaime, Tsunade. He asked. Sarutobi Sensei, said a shocked Tsunade. Then more figures dropped from the trees and revealed themselves to be Anbu, who immediately took hold of Naruto and held him down, much to his displeasure. Oiji-chan, what's the meaning of this? Naruto screamed as the Anbu attempted to hold him down. Sandaime signaled the Anbu to release Naruto and they did so. Sandaime regarded Naruto and Tsunade before turning to the rest of the Anbu. All of you return to your posts, nothing has happened. Hi. They responded before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Sandaime turned and addressed the remaining two people. Now why don't we go to the tower and discuss this matter in private? Scene change. Standing in front of the Hokage's desk, Naruto and Tsunade stood quietly beside each other. Naruto was about to speak up, but the Hokage beat him to it. So Naruto, you were training and then you found this gate, that after touching, you felt like it was draining you of energy and then she appeared, am I correct? Naruto faced the Sandaime and replied, yes. Sandaime looked at the two again and then said, and Tsunade was it? Hi, Hokage-sama. After gaining consciousness you saw that Naruto had passed out due to chakra exhaustion and you looked after him. Hi, after this brat passed out. Oi, what do you mean by brat, huh? I'm 14 years old, you know. Tsunade stared at him in disbelief. No way, you're 14 and yet you're this short. She said before bursting into laughter. Then you're not only a brat but you're also a shrimp, Tsunade said between gasps of breath. Naruto turned red at the statement. Well, you're not so tall yourself, and how old are you anyway? Tsunade stopped laughing and stood up. Just so you know, I'm already 18 years old, but most people say that I only look 16. And struck a pose. Both the Sandaime and Naruto sweat dropped at the sight. People only said that because they saw the one and only Tsunade Hime punch the equally famous pervert Jiraiya out of the village after a comment about her age, thought the Sandaime. Ha, if I'm a shrimp then you must be an old hag. The temperature suddenly dropped then before Naruto knew what had happened to him he had been punched through the floor and back into unconsciousness. The Sandaime took a puff of his pipe before regarding Tsunade. I am so proud to see that you did not slack off in your training. Tsunade suddenly remembered that she was in the presence of the Hokage and that she had punched a hole in his office. Please forgive my rudeness, Sarutobi Sensei. Sandaime took another puff of his pipe before waving a dismissing hand. No need to apologize, things like that are easily repaired. Tsunade looked through the hole at the unconscious form inside it. If you're worried about Naruto, I have arranged for him to be taken home by his academy teacher. The Sandaime's voice suddenly turned serious. Now who are you really and where are you from? Tsunade turned to face the Sandaime and said, I'm Tsunade from the village of Konoha, granddaughter of the Shadaime and medic of the team you lead, Sarutobi Sensei. I'm inclined to believe you, however that information is too general. Maybe something more personal will convince me. Tsunade thought for a moment before she said, there was this one time that Jiraiya explained that his skills improve when peeping and you said that next time you would go with him. Sandaime turned red at that statement. How do you know that? Sandaime said, an expression of shock on his face. Tsunade sighed then said, I told you already, I know because I'm Tsunade. Then can you explain why you look 32 years younger? Tsunade looked at the Sandaime and shouted, have you become senile, Sensei? Why would I want to look 32 years younger when I'm not even 50? Sandaime sighed. Then tell me about how you got to the forest that Naruto was training in. All right, it was when we were on a mission. Suaku. Phew, this is the longest chapter I've written yet. Then tell me how you got to the forest Naruto was training in. Tsunade sat down and said, all right then, it was when we were on a mission. Flashback. We had been sent on routine scout mission through Earth country, everything had been going well until. The Sannin are already Junin here by the way. Jiraiya, Orochimaru and Tsunade can be seen walking through a forest. Well, Orochimaru and Tsunade were walking, Jiraiya was walking and scribbling something onto a notepad. What the hell are you doing, Jiraiya? We're in the middle of a mission, you know. Tsunade shouted, irritation clear in her voice. Jiraiya looked up from his notepad and regarded Tsunade for a moment. Jiraiya looked thoughtful for a moment before breaking into a lecherous grin and then returning to his scribbling, giggling all the way. Tsunade stomped over to Jiraiya and swiped the notepad from his hands. What the hell are you writing? That's more important than focusing on the mission. Snapping out of his perverted fantasies, Jiraiya decided to answer Tsunade's question. Ha 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 ha. What you are holding right now, my dear still flat-chested Tsunadeheim, is the draft of future best-selling novel in not only in Fire Country, but in all 4 great countries. I will call it Ika Ika Paradise Bohahahahahaha. A few meters from Jiraiya, Tsunade was trembling and a battle aura seemed to glow around her. Orochimaru, knowing better than to be in Tsunade's way when she's angry, carefully scooted away from her. You pervert. With that battle cry, Tsunade punched Jiraiya into the ground. You think that just because you can put your perverted fantasies on paper that you're a writer now, huh? And with that she proceeded to tear the notepad into little pieces. What the hell do you think you're doing, you flat-chested bitch? Jiraiya shouted from his face-down position. What else? I'm ridding the world of another horrible idea from a perverted freak like you. Tsunade replied. We were too careless. We thought there were no enemies in the area. We were wrong. All 3 suddenly tensed up and shifted into ready stances. Oi Jiraiya, Tsunade, did you feel that? Both of them replied. How many do you think there are, Orochimaru? Tsunade asked. Orochimaru's eyes darted left and right, looking for the slightest distortion in the trees. 4, possibly 5, most likely all Junin. Yosh. Finally some action. This mission won't be so boring after all. Jiraiya exclaimed while pulling out a kunai from his holster. Don't let your guard down, the enemy appears to have some skill as well. Tsunade exclaimed. The 3 started moving through the forest again, tension clearly seen on their faces. The enemy is most likely following us from a safe distance. Don't let your guard down, Orochimaru said. Damn it. I hate these waiting games, why don't we just find them and beat 'em up? Jiraiya shouted from his position. Also, our mission was to scout out enemy territory and gather information, not engage the enemy in combat, Tsunade added in. We were still 2 days away from the rendezvous point, we were expecting an attack, they did not let us down. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Orochimaru sat around a small fire, their kunai right in the ground beside them should there be an attack. Nay. It's been a day already, do you think they gave up? Tsunade turned to Jiraiya and said, probably not, maybe they went to get reinforcements or they decided to regroup. What do you think, Orochimaru? Jiraiya directed his gaze at Orochimaru, who looked to be deep in thought. They probably decided to call reinforcements, seeing as how the 3 of us are actually well known in the 5 countries. The so-called Sannin, a team who was taught by the current Hokage himself, it would not be a surprise if they decided to call for reinforcements. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade looked a bit surprised. Were that famous? Which means, Orochimaru continued, that we will have to expect a bigger, more coordinated attack. Both Jiraiya and Tsunade nodded, seeing that once again, that Orochimaru was right. It was to be decided that Jiraiya was to take the first shift. After a few minutes, Jiraiya started to feel drowsy and unable to resist fell asleep himself. In the shadows of the tree tops, a group of 10 stone nin waited. A man with long black hair whom I will call Stone Nin was directing his men. All right, you there, he said pointing at a man whom I will call Stone Nina. Take 2 men to the ground, set up a perimeter around those 3 and ready that jutsu. Stone Nina nodded and pointed at 2 other men situated on branches behind him and disappeared. Yosh, now you, he said addressing a Stone Nin to his left, take another squad and drop down to about mid-level of these trees and commence the attack on my signal. Stone Ninb, as I will now call him, nodded and disappeared along with 2 others and positioned themselves a few branches lower than Stone Nin 0. A hand signal later and the attack had begun. A barrage of kunai from Stone Ninbi's squad flew towards the 3 blankets that were situated on the forest floor. The kunai hit, sticking into their targets with dull thuds. Slightly surprised that the barrage actually hit their target, Stone Ninb and his squad decided to confirm their kill. Kicking the blankets, Stone Ninb and his squad did not have time to escape as 3 explosive tags that were attached to logs exploded, ending the lives of Stone Ninb and his squad. Stone Nina's squad had noticed the explosive tag and Kawarimi combo a little earlier and quickly made hand seals, Doden, Suchi Tate no Jutsu, Doden, Earth Shield technique, and slammed their hands into the ground, creating a wall of earth to shield them from the explosion. After the explosion their shields were completely obliterated but the Stone Nins themselves remained unharmed. Tsunade appeared from behind Stone Nina and quickly delivered an earth-shattering punch to his gut, grabbing him by the vest. Tsunade lifted him just in time to block 2 incoming kunai from her left. Discarding the corpse, Tsunade a swipe from a wrist blade, grabbing the outstretched arm, she pushed at the elbow joint of the attacker. Satisfied to hear a loud snap from the assailant's arm, she stepped back just in time to avoid a downward slash from the one remaining Stone Nin and allowing it to cut the arm right at the elbow. Shouting in pain, the Stone Nin grasped at where his forearm used to be. Quickly moving behind the still active Stone Nin, Tsunade tripped him and as he was falling, she plunged the severed forearm that still had a wrist blade attached right through him. From his position in the treetops, Stone Nin 0 regained composure just in time to see Tsunade attack Stone Nina's squad. He was about to order the rest of his squad to go and assist, but instead of finding his squad, he only found 2 corpses riddled with needles and another corpse nailed to a tree by a sword. How do you like my Harigami no Jutsu, hair needle technique? A voice shouted from behind Stone Nin 0. Whipping around, Stone Nin 0 found Jiraiya and Orochimaru standing just a few branches away. As expected of the team trained by the current Hokage himself, it seemed as if we have lost from the very start. You're damn right you did. Jiraiya shouted. Quickly tossing a smoke bomb, Stone Nin 0 decided that retreat was better than capture, but before he could even jump, a fist was quickly planted into his gut courtesy of Tsunade. Falling to the forest floor, Stone Nin 0 pulled out a scroll from one of the many pockets of his Junin vest and quickly opened it. Right before landing, Stone Nin 0 bit his thumb and ran it across the scroll, leaving a red streak on it. Quickly closing the scroll again, he held it between his pointer finger and thumb. Kuchios. Tomen no Jutsu. Summoning. Time Gate. Suddenly Blue Charka burst out and leapt out towards Tsunade, who followed Stone Nin 0 after he fell. I can't move, Tsunade thought. Then a big gate appeared in front of her. Behind the gate, Stone Nin 0 laughed. With this the stone will have one less problem to deal. He was unable to finish his sentences. 2 kunai hit him in the head, but it was too late to stop the summoning. Jiraiya and Orochimaru arrived just in time to see the gate open up and a strong wind seemed to blow out of it. Tsunade. Jiraiya and Orochimaru shouted at the same time while trying to get closer to her. However, the wind was too strong. There was a bright flash, and when I woke up, I was near that kid. End flashback. Tsunade took a deep breath after telling the story. The Sandaime looked at her and took a puff of his pipe. I see. Such a summoning is considered rare even in this continent. Tsunade looked at the Sandaime. What do you mean, Sensei? The Sandaime took another puff of his pipe before replying. Tsunade, the ninja wars have ceased. We are now in a time in wherein Konoha is at peace. Tsunade looked shocked. What? That gate you saw was probably a very rare summoning jutsu in which the user can send an enemy of theirs to whatever time period they want. Tsunade looked on in disbelief, but jutsus like that were said to have been lost. That still does not change the fact that you are in the future, Tsunade. Tsunade suddenly became silent as the gravity of the situation hit her. Seeing his student like this, the Sandaime decided to brighten up the situation. There may be a way to return you to your own time in the scroll of forbidden seals. I will look into it. For now, why don't rest and have a look at what your efforts during the war brought? Tsunade looked up and smiled. I would like that, Sensei. Tsunade then thought, but Sensei, where am I going to stay? Sandaime looked at her. Don't worry, I know just the place. Suaku. So tired. Wrote this at 3 a.m. Need sleep. Ranagai. Tsunade Heim. Thank you for all the reviews. They inspire me to write even more. Italics or thought. Shikan, exam. Don't worry. I know just the place, Sandaime said. Sandaime led Tsunade through the town, pointing out certain areas along the way. As you can see, Tsunade, Konoha prospered since the end of the war. Businesses are thriving and children can play safely in the streets. We no longer need to worry about an attack, although we still keep security tight, since there are those who still bear ill will against Konoha. Sandaime stopped in the middle of his explanation to look at Tsunade, who was looking at everything with an amazed look. Amazing, isn't it, Tsunade? Sandaime asked. Snapping out of her reverie, Tsunade replied, Hi, I can't believe this is Konoha. Tsunade thought. Everything looks so peaceful. The usual tension that was present in the atmosphere is gone. Averting her gaze from a nearby store, she asked the Sandaime, this was what Oji-sama and everyone were fighting for, right, Sensei? Her face softening. Yes, Tsunade, this was what Shadaime-sama and Nadaime-sama were fighting for, peace. The two of them stopped in front of a rather extravagant-looking inn. The sign out front said, Inagawa. Sandaime stepped inside and approached the counter. Excuse me. I would like to rent a room for my niece here. The elderly woman, who was slightly dozing off behind, snapped to attention and greeted them with a warm smile. Era. Hokage-sama, please excuse my behavior. The inn has been very busy lately and... No need to apologize, it's quite alright, Sandaime said. As I was saying, I would like to book a room for my niece. She has recently arrived from Earth Country and will be staying here for a while until she can set up permanent residence. That was not too far from the truth, except for the niece part. Everything fitted perfectly. Tsunade had come from Earth Country, albeit by a very unorthodox method, but the innkeeper did not need to know that. The innkeeper directed her gaze at Tsunade. It is an honor to have a relative of the Hokage staying in our inn. She said, then bowed. Tsunade did likewise. Thank you. The innkeeper reached behind the desk and pulled out a key. Here is the key to your room. Please excuse me, I did not catch your name. Handing the key to Tsunade, the innkeeper said, your room is down the hall, Reiko-sama, it is the one with the number 7 on it. If you would like, there is an onsen in the back, use it as you wish. There is also a pachinko parlor and gambling area downstairs if you are into that. If there is something you need, feel free to ask any our staff. And with that, the innkeeper walked away. Knowing of Tsunade's problem, Sandaime pulled out his wallet and handed Tsunade a few bills. Here's some money, don't spend it all on gambling, alright? But his words fell on deaf ears as Tsunade swiped the money from his hands and disappeared downstairs. Sandaime was about to step out of the building when a hand gripped his shoulder. Sensei, could you lend me some more money? Sandaime turned around to discover that it was none other than Tsunade. What? You lost it all? Sandaime shouted. Hi. Tsunade replied sheepishly. Sandaime facefaulted, but it's only been 5 minutes. He said after standing up. Well, you know I'm a bit unlucky, Sensei. Sandaime directed a skeptical look her way. Okay, always unlucky, but I just can't help it. Sandaime sighed and pulled out another wad of bills. This the last amount I am going to give yo, but he was unable to finish his sentences. Tsunade once again swiped the bills from his hand and disappeared downstairs. Not wanting any more of his money to be taken, Sandaime immediately poofed away. Later, or should I say 5 minutes later. Tsunade lowered herself into the hot bath and relaxed as the water soothed and relaxed. This is great, I never got a chance to relax like this during the war. She looked down at herself and noticed the necklace that hung from her neck. Nawaki, I wish you would have been able to see this. Konoha is at peace, all the fighting, the sacrifices, it's all over. Sorry if I dragged that scene out too long. Scene change. It was the day of the Genin exam and it was Naruto's turn. Alright Naruto, to pass this exam you need to make 3 bunshin, you can do that right? Iruka asked from the examiner's table. Naruto laughed then said, no problem Iruka sensei, this'll be a piece of cake. He then formed a hand seal and shouted, Bunshin no jutsu. There was the explosion of smoke and for a while, nothing happened until it started raining forearms in the examination room. The examiners suddenly found themselves being held by forearms in all sorts of places, although Iruka can be seen seething in a vein visible on the side of his forehead. The vein only increased in size as the forearm that had latched onto his shoulder pulled itself to the side of his face and stuck a finger in his ear. Naruto, you fail, Iruka shouted while removing the appendage, after which he threw at Naruto, hitting him dead center in the groin. As Naruto collapsed, the other Chunin examiner, Mizuki, turned to Iruka, Iruka sensei, why don't we just let him pass? I mean, it is his 4th time, you know. Iruka gave Mizuki a stern look. Mizuki sensei, to pass this test, a student must be able to make at least 3 bunshins. Failing to do so will result in not passing the exam. Just look at this. Iruka gestured at the room filled with wiggling forearms. He could not even make a proper bunshin. If we let him become a genin now, it will only result in disaster. At his swing, Naruto looked at the parents that came to congratulate their children for passing the genin exam. 2 parents were looking in Naruto's direction. Hey, isn't he, you know that? One parent whispered, I'm glad they didn't let that boy graduate, after all he is the shish. We're not allowed to talk about that in public, you know the law. Back at his swing, Naruto was about to continue sulking when a figure covered his light. Hey shrimp, what are you doing all the way over here? Naruto looked up from his position to find Tsunade staring down at him. Oh, it's just you. Tsunade looked offended by the statement she was about to retort when Naruto got up from his swing and started running to the opposite direction of the academy. Where are you going? Tsunade shouted, but it was too late. Naruto was gone. It's the 4th Naruto thought as he gazed at the sunset. After his run-in with Tsunade, Naruto decided to visit one of his favorite spots in Konoha, the top of the Hokage monument. I didn't expect to see you here, Naruto-kun, a voice called out from behind Naruto. He glanced at the direction of the voice and saw the other Chunin examiner, Mizuki. Don't be too angry at Iruka-sensei, he's only doing his job, he said as he took a sat down next to Naruto. A few minutes of silence passed. Shall I tell you about the special method of passing the genin exam? Mizuki inquired. Naruto looked up from his sitting position at Mizuki's face. Scene change. Iruka was awakened from his sleep by a loud knocking that could be heard from his door. Who could it be at this hour? He opened the door to find Mizuki behind it and breathing heavily. Iruka. It's Naruto, he's stolen the scroll of forbidden seals. Mizuki shouted. Hokage-sama has ordered all available ninja to search for him and retrieve the scroll, and with that, Mizuki turned and left. Iruka quickly dressed and ran out of his house, locking the door on the way. Why would Naruto take the scroll of forbidden seals? It doesn't make any sense, Iruka thought while jumping across rooftops. There is only one place Naruto could be if they have not found him yet. Iruka hoped that he could find Naruto first so that a big misunderstanding could be prevented. In the streets below, alone, Kunoichi noticed that Junin and Chunin are moving about in such a fashion that was only seen during attacks or if an intruder is found. What's going on? Isn't that the shrimp's teacher? Maybe something happened to the brat. And with that thought, Tsunade leapt up from the streets. Scene change. Yush, that's one technique down. Maybe Iruka-sensei will let me pass the exam now. Naruto stood in a small area with a fallen log, panting from exhaustion. Hearing someone drop from the trees behind him, Naruto turned to face the newcomer. Naruto, what are you doing with the scroll of forbidden seals? Iruka said after dropping from his hiding spot in the trees. Exhaustion could be clearly seen from his face as he was panting and sweating heavily. It looks like I've been found, Naruto said while scratching the back of his head in embarrassed manner. Anyo-sa, sensei, I've learned one of the techniques from this scroll, now you'll let me pass, right? Right, Naruto exclaimed while bouncing around Iruka that could only be attributed to Naruto's hyper behavior. He's been training all this time, Iruka thought as he examined the Naruto's condition. What are you talking about, Naruto? He questioned as Naruto's last statement sunk in. You know, that if I master a technique from this scroll you let me pass the genin exam, Mizuki-sensei said so. Naruto explained through closed eyes. Mizuki did, Iruka managed to say before suddenly grabbing Naruto and shielding him from a giant shuriken that would have otherwise cleaved Naruto in half. Thank you for retrieving the scroll for me, Naruto-kun, now hand it over, called a voice that belonged to none other than Mizuki, who was perched on one of the trees in the area. Naruto, don't listen to him, he only wants the scroll for himself. Iruka shouted from where he positioned himself after removing the shuriken. Shall I tell you a secret, Naruto-kun? About why the village direct those cold looks at you? About why they hate you? Mizuki shouted. Naruto froze in his place and looked at Iruka. Sensei, what's he talking about? Fear clearly seen in his eyes. I'll tell you then, you know the demon fox that attacked years ago, right? It was said that the fox was destroyed by the Yondaime, but that's not true. The truth is it was sealed into a newborn baby. It all makes sense. The cold stares the hate directed at me, Naruto thought as visions of the cold stares he received in Konoha came to mind. That's right, Naruto, you're the demon fox, responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people, Iruka's parents included. Did you actually think he was being nice to you? No, he was only waiting for his chance to avenge his parents' death. Naruto looked at Iruka, terror clearly visible on his face. Wait. Naruto, it's not like that, Iruka shouted as he saw Naruto bolt into the forest. Wait. Demon, Mizuki shouted as he chased after Naruto. Iruka stood up and also gave chase. Mizuki saw Naruto and threw his giant shuriken. I've got you. Naruto was sliced cleanly in half only to explode in a puff of ninja smoke, a log sliced in half replacing him. Kawarimi. Mizuki saw another Naruto and jumped after giving him a kick in the side. Naruto hit a tree and exploded in a puff of ninja smoke, revealing Iruka. Still protecting the demon, Iruka. Mizuki said to the fallen Iruka with a sneer. He's not a demon, he is one of my precious talented students, Iruka said. He may have low grades and he just pulls pranks most of the time, but Naruto is one of the most hardworking ninja that I have ever seen. Very nice, Iruka, you can tell that to him when you meet in the next world. Mizuki said as he pulled out a kunai and thrust it toward Iruka only to stop halfway when a kunai flew from his left and hit his arm. Don't you dare lay a finger on Iruka-sensei, Naruto shouted from his position, the scroll of seals placed near him. If you try to hurt Iruka-sensei again, I'll kill you. A strong wind blew across the area as Naruto formed a hand seal, Kujibunshin no Jutsu. There was a huge puff of smoke and when it cleared, Naruto's covered the entire forest. Mizuki stumbled back and fell. Hey, what's wrong, huh? Shouted the multiple Narutos in unison. If you, not going to attack, then we will. And thus commenced the most painful experience in Mizuki's life. Dawn had arrived and with the beaten Mizuki behind him, Naruto looked at Iruka. I did it, sensei, he exclaimed before falling like a sack of bricks. From his palace near the tree, Iruka smiled. He mastered such a high-level ninjutsu in such a short time, absolutely amazing, Naruto. Naruto, come here. Naruto stood up and then sat down in front of Iruka and to his surprise, Iruka placed the Hittite on Naruto's forehead. Congratulations, you passed the genin exam, Naruto. Naruto looked at the forehead protector, tears about to burst from his eyes. Arigato, Iruka-sensei. From her spot in the trees, Tsunade clearly saw all that transpired. Smiling to herself, she thought the shrimps not half bad before disappearing. we find Naruto sitting in a chair at the ninja administration's office. The Hokage was sitting on chair behind a desk which had a stack of papers on it. Fill these up, the Sandaime said, slightly pushing the stack of papers towards Naruto. After looking at the pile of papers, Naruto turned to the Hokage. I don't want to. Naruto, these documents are very important, fill them up now. Naruto grimaced, then made a hand seal, henge. When the smoke cleared, there stood a buxom blonde. Please Hokage-sama. The female Naruto blew a kiss which caused the Sandaime to stare, then have blood sprout out of his nose and tip over his chair. After recovering, the Sandaime could be seen wiping his nose. Waroke no jutsu is what you called it, right? What a ridiculous technique. Naruto scratched the back of his head as if the previous statement was a compliment. By the way, Naruto, I have something to talk to you about. Something. The door suddenly slid to the side to reveal a little boy with a long blue scarf. Gigi, I challenge you. The boy started running towards Sandaime, shuriken in hand. The title of Godime Hokage shall belong to me, Konohama, only to trip on his own scarf. Konohamaru tried to stand. A trap, huh? Another person entered the room. Are you alright, young master? By the way, there are no traps, the man said while pushing his shades up his nose. Who the hell is this kid? Naruto thought. Konohamaru noticed Naruto, then stood up. You did something, didn't you? He said while pointing at Naruto. Naruto stood up, then grabbed Konohamaru by his scarf. You just tripped on your own, you idiot. Naruto. Release him at once. Ebisu the elite Junin said, which caused Naruto to turn to him. That boy is Sandaime Hokage-sama's grandson. Naruto looked at Konohamaru intently. He's the same as everybody else, he just sees me as the Hokage's grandson, Konohamaru thought. What's wrong? Too scared to hit the grandson of the Hokage. Naruto raised his fist, then delivered it straight onto Konohamaru's head. Like I care about that, you idiot. He said. Before passing out, Konohamaru thought, this guy is Nani? Ebisu said, clearly shocked by what had transpired. The Sandaime took a puff of his pipe, yar, and shook his head. Scene change. Tsunade woke up from her sleep by the ringing of the alarm clock. Deciding that it would be nice take a better look around Konoha, she took a shower and then dressed herself. After opening the door, she came face to face with a Junin who was about to knock. Shimada Reiko-san, right? The Junin asked. Quickly remembering the false she used, Tsunade replied, yes. Hokage-sama requests your presence at the tower. What would Sensei need to see me for? Tsunade thought. Alright, please tell him that I will be there immediately. Hi, the Junin said before poofing away. After reaching the tower, Tsunade stood in front of the Hokage's office. Hokage-sama is expecting you, please enter, the lone bodyguard said. Tsunade entered the office and the doors closed behind her. You wanted to see me, Sensei? She asked. The Hokage turned from the big window which had a spectacular view of Konoha. Yes, Tsunade, it concerns your permanent residence. I have found a suitable place. He said while handing a small piece of paper to Tsunade. It was the only place we could find on such short notice. It is a little small, but I am sure it will fit your needs. Thank you, Sensei, Tsunade said before turning around and exiting the office. As the doors closed behind her, Tsunade failed to see the wide grin that was on Sandaime's face. Scene change. Naruto sat on a log with Konohamaru. The name Hokage isn't something which is that easy to obtain. It takes a lot of hard work and determination to be worthy of the name. And if you want the title of Hokage so much, Naruto turned to look at Konohamaru, you're gonna have to beat me for it. Konohamaru stood up and turned his back to Naruto. Ha! Talking as if you know everything. Konohamaru faced Naruto again. I quit being your follower, from now on we're rivals. You had better be prepared for the day when I take the title of Hokage from you. I look forward to that day, Konohamaru, Naruto said while walking away and waving with one hand. Konohamaru stood at attention and gave a salute to Naruto's retreating back. Scene change. Pulling out the keys to his apartment from his pocket, Naruto could think of nothing better to do than sit down, have a cup ramen, and then sleep. After sniffing himself, he decided that a bath would be nice too. Entering his apartment, he immediately noticed something strange. Everything looks cleaner. After a few more steps, Naruto picks up the sound of running water. Silently creeping towards the bathroom door, Naruto pressed his ear on the door to listen. Somebody's in here now. Naruto would not know why someone would break into his house just to use his bathroom, but that doesn't matter. Kicking the door open, Naruto was rewarded to the sight of a Tsunade, who was currently enjoying a nice shower after cleaning the somewhat dirty apartment that her sensei had given the key to. Seeing that somebody had burst into what she presumed was her shower, Tsunade reacted as any powerful female in any anime would, hentai ei. She reared back her fist and planted it on the side of Naruto's face, sending him through the nearby wall. Suaku. Omake 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 omake. Tenjou Naruto. A long time ago, when school was our sanctuary. It was a paradise. Two boys are seen riding a bike into a school that had the sign, Konoha Gakuen, near its gate. The two boys hopped of their bike, revealing red and blonde hair. Scene change. A figure with white hair ran down the fire escape on the side of the building, coming to a stop in front of a post that had a short girl with blonde hair on it. Bushu, sorry to keep you waiting, the figure said in between breaths. Bushu is a term used to refer to the president or captain of a club. You're late, Yakushi, the small girl on top of the post said. Gomen, my class took a bit long, he said before pushing his glasses up his nose. But more importantly, did the new club member, your sister, come? The two came upon a structure that appeared to be a dojo. Is she really strong like you, Bushu? Well, I say she still has a long way to go, the girl said from her position on Kabuto's shoulders. They opened the door to the dojo. Ino. It's your senpai. Come say hello, Ino. There, in the middle of the dojo stood a blonde-haired girl holding a long sword, sakura petals floating around her. The girl quickly drew her sword and went into a dance, slashing so fast that normal eyes can't follow. The dance ended with her in a crouching position, her sword sheathed at her side, all the sakura petals sliced neatly in half. Amazing was all Kabuto could think after seeing the display. Scene change. A body falls to the floor from a hard punch to the face delivered by the blonde. Another body joins the previous one courtesy of a kick from the redhead. One more body is kicked into the door of the classroom by the blonde. There is a pause in the chaos as one of the remaining students in the classroom shouted, "Yo, you bastards, aren't you just freshmen?" The student beside him, noticeably quivering in fear, added, "Know your place, damn it." The blonde took a step forward, which caused the other two to step back. "I'm Uzumaki Naruto," he said. "Sabaku no Gara," the redhead proclaimed from his spot near the blonde. Naruto took another step forward and shouted, "As of today, this school is under the rule of us, the Jichuriki. If anybody has a problem with that, it doesn't matter what your rank is, we'll kill ya." Omake end. A Tenjou Tenge x Naruto crossover. Please give me your response regarding this. Omake number 2. Bonded. My name is Haruno Sakura. I have this special ability. I can see ghosts. A pink-haired girl of about 15 years old is walking down the street. The girl puts a flower in a bottle which is situated near a telephone pole. Thank you, Oni-chan, the transparent figure of what appeared to be an 8-year-old boy said. It's nothing, I hope you can go to heaven soon. Sakura said, a smile on her face. After walking a bit more, she stopped in front of a house and entered. Tadaima! Sakura shouted as she entered their home, a small clinic. Okari Sakura-chan, have you eaten yet? Haruno Ayame, Sakura's mother asked. Not yet, just let me get changed, then we can eat dinner. Sakura said while going up the stairs to her room. When she opened the door to her room, she noticed that there was a blonde-haired boy clothed in all black standing in the middle of the room. Anyo, excuse me, Sakura said nervously as she tapped the boy on the shoulder. The boy turned around to face her. You can see me? The boy said while pointing at himself. Yes, Sakura replied. Why, am I not supposed to be able to see you? Yeah, Normal humans aren't supposed to be able to see Shinigami, the boy said excitedly. Sakura looked shocked. EHHHHHH. You're a Shinigami. Omake number 2 end. A Bleach x Naruto crossover. Please tell me if you'd like me to continue. The Sandaime Hokage had just finished another round of paperwork. Sometimes he felt like being Hokage just isn't worth it. As he finished stacking the paperwork, he felt a strong killing intent, and it was getting closer to his office. After doing that thingy where he takes off his robe and appears in his battle armor, he decided that using a camouflage cloth, those blanket things they use to blend into the surroundings, and hide beside the door. Big mistake, as the door, which Sandaime knew to only swing outwards, into the hall, swing inwards and was torn of its hinges by being swung the wrong way. His reaction proved to be too late as the door flattened him against the wall. Into the office stormed an obviously pissed of Tsunade, dragging a Naruto who was sporting a black eye, Sarutobi Sensei. I have something to discuss with you. She cried out in a disturbingly sweet voice. She looked around the office and found a human-shaped indentation on the wall. Peeling of the door and found the great Sandaime Hokage pasted on the wall, cracks forming around the indentation made by her slamming him into the wall with a door. A few minutes later, it was the only place we could find on such short notice, a now conscious Sandaime said, dressed once again in his robes. Tsunade, who was seated across the table from him, frowned. I was informed that I would be living with this brat. And slammed her hands onto the desk, causing it to creak due to her monstrous strength. The Hokage watched as the two bicker like children. Enough. Both of you, he shouted. The two immediately stopped and sat down quietly in their chairs. Naruto, Tsunade has no place to stay and having her live at the hotel does not sound good for my wallet or Konoha's treasury, so she will be living with you for a while, okay? But why at my place? Naruto asked. Because other than me, Tsunade doesn't know anyone else in Konoha, and since you met her first, it would be ideal to let her stay with you. She's new in Konoha. That means she doesn't know about the Kyuubi. Naruto thought. Fine then. But I'm doing this just because you asked me to, Jii-chan, Naruto replied, a grin on his face. Very well then. Remember to report to the Genin assembly tomorrow. You are dismissed. The Hokage said. Okay then. Yane, Naruto exclaimed as he walked out of the office. Through the window of his office, the Hokage watched Naruto leave the tower. Tsunade, do you know why that kid appears to be hated by the entire village? The Hokage said, turning to face Tsunade, who was behind him. It was because some kind of demon was sealed into him, right? Tsunade replied. Correct. However, that's not everything. The Hokage related the entire story of the fourth dying, Kyuubi getting sealed into Naruto, etc. At the end of the story, Tsunade nearly cried. Such a heavy burden for one so young, she said, tears threatening to burst from her eyes. The fourth intended for Naruto to be seen as hero, but that was not the case, Sandaime said, eyes downcast. This is where you come in. I am sure that you know what Naruto's life was like. It would be better for him if he had more people to acknowledge his existence. Fine then, Sensei, Tsunade said and sighed in defeat. Thank you, Tsunade, and if you don't mind, there is one more task I would like to ask of you. Sandaime said. Tsunade raised her head to listen to her sensei's request. The day after, Naruto woke up groggily and decided to take a shower. After said shower, he remembered that today was the day of the teams are going to be chosen. Consuming his now cooked instant ramen, he quickly dressed himself and bolted out of his house. After reaching the classroom, someone said to him, "What are you doing here? This only for those who passed." "Can't you see this?" Naruto shouted in the boy's face while pointing at his forehead protector. When he entered the classroom, he was greeted by the sight of Sakura and Ino trying to get the seat beside Sasuke. "Move it, forehead girl, get out of the way, Ino pig. The one who's going to sit next to Sasuke-kun is me," they said while pushing at each other. Damn that Sasuke. Always getting the attention, Naruto thought. I'll show him, and with that, stepped on Sasuke's desk and stared down at him. Apparently this was a bad decision as someone accidentally pushed Naruto, causing him to lock lips with Sasuke. All the girls in the room looked at the scene aghast. No. Sasuke-kun's first kiss. There was a moment of silence before all of the girls looked at Naruto. Battle auras blazing. Naruto ooh, they all said. Now Naruto, who had just recovered from said kiss, wiped his lips on the sleeve of his orange jacket while spitting all over the place, then looked up in alarm as he saw the girls who had just surrounded him. "What's wrong, Sakura-chan?" he asked to Sakura, who was just beside him. Sakura's hand lashed out a speed comparable to Yamazaki's snake fist and grabbed Naruto's collar. "Naruto no, baka," she shouted after delivering what looked to be an extremely painful punch to the side of Naruto's face. The other girls followed, delivering punch after punch on Naruto. Iruka entered the classroom and was greeted with the sight of a twitching Naruto on the ground, multiple bruises on high face. "What happened to you?" he asked. "Punches, so many. Can't block," Naruto said while standing up and proceeding to the back of the classroom. "I will be announcing the team arrangements," Iruka said, and so. Team 7. Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke looked up. Haruno Sakura. "Hell yeah, take that Ino pig," said Sakura, who stood up from her seat and pointed at Ino. Uzumaki Naruto. Sakura immediately deflated and Naruto cheered. "Your Junin senseis will come here to pick you up, so until then wait here," and with that, he left the room. One by one the Junin came and picked up their teams until it was only Team 7 left. "Damn it, our sensei is late," Naruto said in irritation. "Way to state the obvious, Dobi," Sasuke said. Naruto would have shouted back at him but decided that it would have been a waste of time. Instead he decided to prepare a surprise for their late Junin sensei. "What are you doing?" Sakura asked. "It's his fault for being late," Naruto replied while setting the eraser on the top of the door. When the door opened, Naruto expected the eraser to land on the person's head, instead it was caught and thrown back into his face. "Is that any way to treat your sensei?" the person who just entered asked. Suiku. Jiko Shukai, self-introduction. "Is that any way to treat your sensei?" the person who just entered asked. "A few hours ago. Be that boy's sensei?" an incredulous Tsunade asked. "Yes," the Sandaime said after taking a puff of his pipe. "I had originally thought for the person in this file to be his sensei," Sandaime said while handing Tsunade a folder, but even he does not see Naruto's potential and will most likely focus on the genius Uchiha. "Therefore I think it would be in the team's best interest if you teach them." "I don't know, sensei," Tsunade responded, looking over the folder again. "This person seems very capable and I have never led a team before." "Even geniuses have their problems, Tsunade. You should know that very well," Sandaime said. "So, will you accept?" "All right then. I can also assume that except for a handful, most of the Junin of this village hate Naruto, right?" Tsunade asked. Sandaime nodded. "Okay then, I'll do it," Tsunade decided. Back to the present. A decision Sei hoped she would not regret as she looked upon the three who were now seated across from her on the roof. "This arrangement looks eerily familiar," Tsunade thought. "Why don't we start by introducing ourselves?" Tsunade said. "You, the one in orange, why don't you start?" and pointed at Naruto. "Yosh. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen and Iruka sensei. What I don't like is waiting for my ramen to cook and perverts, and my dream is to become Hokage." Even though you are one yourself, Tsunade thought after remembering her previous meetings with Naruto. "Hokage, huh? We'll see." Sakura, seeing that it was her turn, decided to speak up. "Haruno Sakura, my likes are." She blushed and looked at Sasuke. "My dream for the future is." Blush and look at Sasuke again. "What I dislike is Naruto." At those words Naruto pouted. "She more concerned about love than being a ninja. I'll fix that later." "And you?" Tsunade gestured at Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke. "Likes? None. Dislikes? None. I don't have a dream, but I have a goal, that is, to kill a certain man." "Sasuke-kun is so cool," Sakura thought. "Damn, Sasuke trying to act cool again," Naruto thought. Thoughts of revenge at such a young age, that's not good. Seeing that everybody was finished, Tsunade introduced herself. Tsunade, medic nin likes, sake and gambling, dislikes, perverts and losing bets. My dream is to revolutionize the medical system we have and possibly save more lives. After a moment of silence, Tsunade asked, well, any questions? Sakura raised her hand. Anyo, Sensei, why are you named after one of the legendary Sannin? Tsunade was well prepared for such a question. Well, you see, my parents have this strange belief that naming their children after strong people will allow them to become strong as well. I hope they believe this, and they heard about the legendary kunoichi Tsunade and decided that I be named after her since famous kunoichi were rare around that time. Naruto and Sakura just stared blankly at her while surprisingly Sasuke nodded in agreement since he was also named after a famous ninja, one of the founders of ninjutsu itself, Sarutobi Sasuke. Said to be one of the first ninjas along with Hattori Hanzo, he founded one of the first hidden villages Kurigakure and started the cage system which proved itself effective for managing huge numbers of ninjas instead of having small clans. But enough about that. Tsunade decided to continue. Well, I guess that's it for today. Report to training ground with the Shinobi Memorial early in the morning. Make sure to eat your breakfast, you'll need the energy. Dismissed. After Sasuke and Sakura had left, Tsunade and Naruto stayed on the roof. Shouldn't you be going? Tsunade asked. I don't have anything better to do, Naruto replied. An awkward silence passed between the two until Tsunade broke the silence. Sorry about hitting you last night, Tsunade said while looking down. Naruto quickly turned around to hide the blush that had formed on his cheeks. It was nothing, forget about it. Anyo-sa, how about I treat you to some ramen, in apology for hitting you yesterday? At the word ramen, Naruto instantly perked up. Okay. Later at Ichiraku, Tsunade looked at her now empty wallet and the stack of empty bowls beside Naruto. Where the hell do you pack all that food, Naruto? Don't know, Naruto said through a mouthful of ramen. After eating his ramen, Naruto and Tsunade walked back to their apartment. After entering and taking their respective baths, they noticed that there was only one bed. I'm sleeping on the bed, Tsunade declared. No way, I'm sleeping on the bed, replied Naruto. It was like that for a while until Tsunade thought of a solution. Why don't we gamble for it? One game of cards, loser sleeps on the couch. Never to back down from a challenge, Naruto hastily accepted. Alright. Get ready to sleep on the couch, Tsunade. Tsunade explained how they were going to play. 13 cards each, good, better, and best hands, the one with more winning combinations win. The game was on. Tsunade shuffled and cut the deck, after which dealt the cards. A pair, a full house 5 and a straight flush. It's impossible to lose, Tsunade thought as she arranged her cards. Ready? Tsunade asked. Yeah, Naruto replied as he finished arranging his cards. Here we go, Tsunade said as she laid down her first 3 cards, a pair of 10s and a 2. Naruto laid down his first hand, which was composed of a pair of 8s and a 5. Tsunade -1, Naruto 0. Tsunade placed her second hand down, a trio of 5s and a pair of kings, full house, she said. Naruto placed his own cards down, a full house composed of a trio of 7s and pair of 2s. Tsunade 1, Naruto 1. This is it. Both of them thought as they reached the last hand. The tension was so thick that you could cut it with a knife. Tsunade slowly put her hand down, a straight flush composed of straight and all diamonds. Seeing the shock on Naruto's face, Tsunade was about to declare victory when Naruto, who still maintained the shocked expression, slowly placed his cards on the table. Flush, Naruto said slowly. Now it was Tsunade who was shocked as she saw that Naruto had won. A royal flush, all diamonds. Tsunade 1, Naruto 2. Looks like I win. De-chan, he placed emphasis on the chan, which only served to irritate Tsunade further. Just you wait, you little shrimp, I'll get back at you for this. Dream on, old hag. Uzumaki Naruto never loses, Naruto proclaimed triumphantly while adding a thumbs down for effect. Later, Tsunade stirred in her sleep as she heard the sound of someone tossing and turning. She followed the sound to find Naruto, who was tossing and turning in his sleep, tears streaming down his cheeks. After draping the blanket over him, Naruto seemed to calm down. "Don't worry, Naruto. With me as your sensei, I will make sure that your dream will come true." And after saying that, she planted a kiss on his forehead. Later that morning, Naruto woke feeling a little bit more refreshed than usual. After looking around the apartment, he saw that Tsunade was nowhere to be found. She must have gone ahead. A quick bath and some cup ramen later, Naruto quickly left his apartment. Naruto arrived at the training field to find Sasuke and Sakura waiting. "Ohayo, Sakura-chan," Naruto shouted. Sakura winced at the volume of the greeting, and then hit Naruto on the head. "Baka. It's 5 a.m. Shut up. Gomen," Naruto replied sheepishly while nursing his head. "Yo," a voice from their left said. The three turned to the source of the voice to find Tsunade in full Junin uniform and sporting 2 red armguards. "We're going to do something interesting today, survival training." We already did that at the academy, Sensei," Naruto whined. "Ah, but this one is a bit different. This actually a test to see if you are worthy of becoming Genin," Tsunade said. "All 3 soon to be Genin paled. This test has a 66.6 failure rate. The objective is for the 3 of you to attempt to get these 2 bells from me," she said, raising said 2 bells. "The one who fails to get a bell is to be sent back to the academy and will have to repeat another year." Tsunade walked over to one of the 3 logs and placed a clock on top of it. "You all have until noon to get these bells from me. Time starts now." And with that, Sasuke and Sakura vanished. While surprisingly, Naruto remained. "Don't you know what a ninja does?" said an exasperated Tsunade. "The term, ninja, refers to someone who is an expert in stealth, you know. The great Uzumaki Naruto doesn't need to hide. I'll just beat you up, then take those stupid bells," Naruto shouted arrogantly while pointing at Tsunade. Tsunade sighed and popped her knuckles and neck. "Looks like I'll have to teach you what being a ninja is all about, you little brat," as she started stretching a bit. "Bring it on, old hag," Naruto said while shifting into a fighting stance. Having finished stretching, Tsunade said, "By the way, if you want to beat me, come at me with the intent to kill." Tsunade then stomped her foot into the ground, creating visible cracks in the earth as she relaxed into a stance. She stretched out one arm, gestured, "Come on," a smirk visible of her face. "Suiku. Hajime," for the first time. Naruto stared at Tsunade, sizing her up. It was like this for a few seconds, then, quickly reaching into his holster, Naruto flung 3 kunai in Tsunade's direction. Tsunade caught the first 2 kunai, then deflected the third one, causing it to land in the ground beside her. She looked up just in time to see Naruto's fist heading for her. Extending one finger, she tapped Naruto's arm, deflecting the punch and causing Naruto to lose his balance, leaving him open. After which, Naruto found himself with his arm held behind his back, and a kunai near the back of his head. "Is that all?" Tsunade asked mockingly. A ninja is someone who is trained in the art of stealth. Charging headfirst into a fight is the samurai's job. She then threw Naruto into the nearby river. "Where are the other 2? She thought. Her train of thought was broken as 2 shuriken flew out of the river and sped towards her. She casually caught the 2 shuriken, but was surprised when an explosion of ninja smoke occurred and 2 Narutos were now clinging onto her arms. More splashes followed and she watched as more Narutos emerged from the river. They charged as one and dog-piled on Tsunade, intending to get the bells. The Narutos were surprised when they found no Tsunade beneath them. "She must have used henge," a clone said. Chaos followed as the Narutos attacked one another hoping to find Tsunade. "It was you. You smell like Tsunade sensei." "It's not me. It was Kawarimi, you idiot," Tsunade shouted as she stepped out from the bushes. The Narutos all turned to look at her. "Know your jutsus well, or they will be used against you." The Narutos charged at her again. This time though, she was more than prepared. She punched the ground, causing sizable pieces of earth to fly up and hit the attacking Naruto clones, making them disappear in puffs of smoke. The real Naruto continued and threw a punch at Tsunade. She caught the punch and swung Naruto around so that his back was to her. Why are genins nowadays so weak? She stated. Brats like you deserve a good spanking. She then extended her arm and delivered what looked to be a powerful spank to Naruto's ass, causing him to fly across the field because of its strength. Shit, Naruto said while clutching his now sore ass. From the nearby trees, Sasuke and Sakura winced as they saw the recent attack that must have hurt a lot, they thought. Seeing an opening, Sasuke pulled a string he was holding, launching a barrage of kunai at Tsunade. He smirked when he saw the kunai hit their mark but frowned when Tsunade's form poofed and turned into a log. What are you doing all the way over here, Sasuke-kun? Tsunade asked after appearing behind Sasuke. Sasuke dodged the finger that intended to poke him on the head and swung out his leg to kick Tsunade's side. Tsunade caught the kick however and threw Sasuke into the open plain. Your taijutsu is pretty good, Tsunade commented. Sasuke responded by throwing 3 shuriken at her. Tsunade caught the shuriken on one finger and blocked the kick that was aimed at her head that followed. Sasuke followed up with a backhand that was easily and then a straight punch. Tsunade responded by tapping Sasuke's wrist, therefore cancelling the attack, which was followed by a light palm strike on Sasuke's body which sent him flying. After being hit, Sasuke quickly started making hand seals Kaden Gukaku no Jutsu. The ball of flame headed for a slightly surprised Tsunade, who in response to the attack, punched the ground hard, causing a shield of earth to rise up and block the incoming flames. She felt a presence behind her and found Naruto, apparently recovered from his earlier mishap and charging at her once again. He threw 3 kunai at her. The same thing won't work twice, she thought, wary of the kunai cage bunshin combo, and proceeded to step to the side, intending to avoid the kunai completely. Something else happened though, as the clones dropped the henge when they were a few feet from her and charged, the real Naruto following closely behind. The 2 clones to her left and right threw a left hook and a right sweep respectively. She blocked the attacks with one arm and leg each, then found the 3rd clone a few inches from grabbing the bell. Tsunade planted a knee in the clone's face and made it disappear. She then delivered a punch to the clone on her left and elbowed the clone to her right, causing them to disappear. This left the real Naruto, who tried to hit Tsunade with a thrust kick aimed at her midsection. Tsunade caught the kick, but then Naruto threw a smoke bomb aimed at her face. The smoke bomb exploded on the rock behind her and, though not on target, successfully created a smoke screen. From within the smoke screen, Tsunade felt a kunai fly by her, slightly causing a tear on her suit. She quickly ran out of the smoke screen and emerged to find Sakura, who immediately threw a kunai at her. She deflected the kunai, but suddenly dodged as she saw a kunai to seemingly appear out of nowhere and fly by her cheek, causing a small scratch. Onky, she thought. Sakura proceeded to throw another kunai. Tsunade looked at the thrown kunai and saw another kunai slightly trailing underneath the first. She deflected both kunai this time and blocked a kick from Sakura. Breng, the sound echoed throughout the field as the clock indicating the time limit signaled the end of the test. She gathered the 3 genin in front of the 3 logs. I see that you were unab. She trailed off as she reached down to her waist to get said bells, only to find nothing. Looking for this, Sensei? Naruto stated with a victorious tone while raising the 2 bells in question. Surprise showed on Tsunade's face. When did you? She started that kunai. She thought, replaying the part where she deflected the 2 kunai thrown by Sakura. Hehe, I transformed myself into one of the kunai Sakura-chan was holding and took the bells just right after the alarm rang, Naruto declared with a huge grin on his face. Well, Naruto, you have 2 bells, who will you give the other 2? Tsunade asked. Naruto did not bother to waste time thinking. I'll give to Sakura-chan, of course. If she didn't help me, we would have failed, Naruto declared as he handed the bell to Sakura, who blushed a bit at the compliment even though it was from Naruto. This left Sasuke. As you know, the one who doesn't get a bell is tied to the log, Tsunade stated. And so we find Sasuke tied to the middle log and slightly squirming due to the discomfort of his bindings. Tsunade stepped a few meters from the log and pulled out a kunai. Ninja risk their lives for the mission, correct? Sakura and Naruto nodded. The kunai flew from Tsunade's hand, landing dangerously close to Sasuke's face. What are you doing, Sensei? Shouted Naruto. Tsunade ignored the statement. You will encounter many life-threatening situations in the field, she said as another kunai flew from her fingers and landed closely to the right side of Sasuke's face. Naruto and Sakura proceeded to step forward but were stopped in their tracks. Don't help him. Tsunade shouted. Make one move to help him and the both of you fail as well. And another kunai flew from her hand and landed with a thud right between Sasuke's legs, near his groin. If Sasuke wasn't afraid before, one could see that he was now shown by the many beads of sweat running down his face. Even Sakura looked shocked. This was also expressed by her alter ego. What the hell is that bitch doing? Her inner personality shouted. She looked at Tsunade, who had a very evil-looking grin on her face. Maybe I should end the Uchiha bloodline here. She wondered out loud while tapping the handle of the kunai she was holding against her chin. Sakura almost fainted at that remark. She can't do that. Sakura thought. The next one won't miss, Tsunade stated coolly and threw the kunai, intending to hit Sasuke for real this time. Sakura closed her eyes, expecting to hear the meaty thud of kunai meeting flesh, and she did, but when she opened her eyes, she was extremely surprised to find Naruto in front of Sasuke, arms crossed with a kunai lodged in one of them. Why did you interfere? Tsunade shouted with steel in her voice. I don't care about repeating another year. I don't care even if it is Sasuke Tem. I can't just stand by and watch a fellow Konoha shinobi be harmed. Naruto shouted with determination. Tsunade proceeded to step towards Naruto, stopping in front of him and poked him in the chest, sending him crashing into Sasuke, who was tied to the log. Out in the field, you will be forced to make harsh decisions. Are you prepared for that? Tsunade asked. She then raised a kunai in front of Naruto and brought it down. Shit. I can't move, Naruto thought as he closed his eyes and prepared for death. Wondering why he did not feel anything, he opened his eyes and was shocked to see Sakura in front of him, trying vainly to stop Tsunade's attack. Sakura-chan. Naruto shouted. So strong, Sakura thought as she struggled to hold Tsunade's attack, her feet making indentations in the earth from the force of Tsunade's attack. She then saw Tsunade's hand move and prepared for the inevitable. She could not help but stare when she felt a hand ruffle the hair on her head. You all pass, Tsunade said with a smile on her face. Sakura's knees gave way and she collapsed. Naruto and Sasuke stared agape. Oi, what do you mean by that? Naruto shouted. It's just as I said. You all pass, she said matter-of-factly. There will be missions that will endanger the lives of you and your teammates. Nothing is more important to a team than teamwork. This test was meant to test if you were capable of teamwork, and you pass with flying colors. Sakura sighed in relief, then she started to giggle, which after a few moments, turned into laughter, and Naruto joined in while Sasuke just smiled a bit. Naruto, come here, Tsunade said. Naruto did so and was startled when Tsunade grabbed his arm, pulled out the kunai, eliciting a shout of pain from Naruto. Be quiet, Tsunade ordered, which caused Naruto to do so. She then raised a hand that was glowing with charka to the wound, healing it completely. Naruto stared at the spot where his wound had been with awe. Anyo-sa, are you going to teach me that, sensei? Naruto asked excitedly. We'll see, Tsunade responded. She untied Sasuke and once again, faced the three genin, as congratulations for passing the exam. How about I treat you to some dinner? Yosha. Let's have ramen, Naruto exclaimed. Ramen sounds good, Sakura stated, while Sasuke just nodded his head. Later. They had just finished eating ramen and were about to leave. Well, I'm off to the Junin meeting. Team 7 starts its duties tomorrow, Tsunade said and left. Sasuke also left, giving a grunt as a sign of goodbye, leaving Sakura and Naruto. Want me to walk you home, Sakura-chan? Naruto said with glee. No need to, Naruto. I'll be alright, Sakura said while pumping a fist in the air. Oh, Naruto replied, Okay then, see you tomorrow, Sakura-chan. And with that, Naruto turned to leave but stopped when a hand clutched his shoulder. He turned around to find that it was Sakura. What's wrong, Sakura-chan? Thanks for teaching me a valuable lesson back there, Naruto, she said, after which, she gave him a quick peck on the cheek before running off. Naruto touched the spot that Sakura kissed. I was just kissed by Sakura-chan. Naruto thought. The look on his face said that he should be happy, but he did not feel it. Deciding that pondering such a thing would just give him a headache, he decided to just dwell on the fact that Sakura kissed him and went home, a wide grin on his face. At the Junin meeting, Tsunade stared at the odd man who was speaking up front. I would like to welcome our latest addition, Tsunade. As the man who was known as Maida Guy, it is such a wonder to be able to reach the rank of Junin while still in the springtime of youth. Guy shouted while shedding tears. The door of the bar swung open and in walked a man reading a book. Kakashi, my eternal rival. How was your team? Kakashi looked up from his book and replied, they failed, another disappointment, before going back into his book. Who did you get for your team? A woman to Tsunade's left asked. Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, Yuahi Kurenai. This chain smoker beside me is Asuma, she said while gesturing at Asuma, who raised his mug and said, Yo. Tsunade. She responded and took a sip of her sake. My team looks promising. I got Uzumaki, Uchiha and Haruno. Kurenai nodded. Well, I got the Hyuga heiress, and Inuzuka, and an Aburame. Tsunade nodded and then they looked at Asuma. I got the Ino-Shika Cho combination, he stated and then took a swig of his mug. This year's Genins are filled with all sorts of monsters, aren't they? Kurenai asked Asuma, who nodded in affirmation. Seeing that nobody else was going to say anything, Tsunade proceeded to drink the rest of her sake. Sorry if this scene sucked, I don't know how to write party scenes. Later. Naruto was about to go to sleep when he heard a rapping at his door. Who could it be at this hour? He opened the door to find Tsunade, who has holding a sake bottle in one hand with a huge grin on her face. I'm Bach, she said, obviously drunk, and then collapsed. Naruto shook his head and made a clone to help carry her to the bed. Man, you're pretty heavy, he said. What zot? Are you saying zot I'm fat? Tsunade angrily replied and moved to punch Naruto, but since she was plastered it came out as more of a tap on his cheek. After laying her on the bed, Naruto dispelled the clone and breathed a sigh of relief. At least you got home okay, he said out loud. Tsunade gazed at Naruto through half-closed eyes. Nawaki. After seeing Tsunade's eyes open, Naruto moved closer to see if she was awake but soon found himself nearly suffocating as Tsunade enveloped Naruto in a hug. Nawaki, I'm sorry, so sorry, Tsunade repeated as she sobbed heavily. I couldn't save you, I sobbed, Tsunade stuttered, I'm so useless, and cried on Naruto's shoulder. Seeing that Tsunade was crying, Naruto clumsily returned the hug, rubbing Tsunade's back all the while in assurance. It was after a bit that Tsunade calmed down. Naruto tried to adjust his position to leave but found that he could not because of Tsunade's strength. I hope she doesn't misunderstand this in the morning, Naruto thought before drifting off into sleep in Tsunade's arms. Suaku. Ninmu mission. Tsunade sighed as she looked at her team who was gathered at the bridge. It has been a long and very stressful week. Day 1. Team 7 was supposed to gather at the bridge. Sasuke arrived first, followed by Sakura, who gave an excessively cheerful, Ohayu. Sasuke-kun. Followed by a glomp. Sasuke gave an irritated grunt as a reply. Ohayu Sakura-chan, Sasuke-tem, a weak voice called out to them. The two turned to the source of the voice, finding something wrong since said voice was supposed to be higher in terms of volume. They were greeted with the sight of a battered Naruto. He was sporting bruises and a black eye. Naruto, what happened to you? Sakura asked, not because she liked him or anything, just that because he was her teammate. Nothing, Naruto replied, even though it was obvious that there was something. Seeing that Naruto wasn't going to say anything, Sakura decided to drop the matter. Tsunade gave a wave as she joined the trio. Yo. Ohayu, The three genin replied. We have a mission today, she said while holding up a scroll. It's from a Mr. Miyagi. Yosha. Naruto cried excitedly upon hearing the words mission. I bet it's a really cool mission. Let's do it. His other two teammates looked at him, obviously not sharing his enthusiasm. Tsunade frowned at Naruto, who thankfully did not notice. She nearly blushed after recalling the events that transpired this morning. Earlier this morning, she was having a dream about her getting together with the undeniably hottest ninja during her time, Hayabusa Ryu. Oh, Ryu-sama, Tsunade cooed as she gazed upon the masked visage of Ryu. Tsunade-chan, he responded, then slowly pulled his mask off, revealing a face that would, in her time, make any kunoichi melt on the spot. The truth is, Tsunade-chan, ever since I saw you, there has been this feeling I can't stop. It's the feeling of wanting to be close to you, Ryu said huskily, all the while caressing Tsunade's cheek. To which Tsunade responded by placing her hand over his. Oh Ryu-sama, she said excitedly. She then moved in to capture his lips. Meanwhile, Naruto had just woken up to the sight of approaching lips. He was about to shout, but Tsunade's lips covering his remedied that. Naruto's eyes became the size of golf balls, but he slowly started to return the kiss. I don't really understand, but it feels kinda nice, he thought. He immediately retracted this thought, however, as he saw that Tsunade was in the process of waking up. Panicking, he quickly tried to break the kiss and escape from Tsunade's vice-like embrace, but it was useless. Tsunade's superhuman strength made sure of that. It was at this point that Tsunade woke up and she quickly noticed two things. Naruto was in her bed and that he was kissing her, or vice versa, but that was not the point. Quickly breaking the kiss, she grabbed Naruto and threw him across the room, causing him to crash into the nearby wall. After recovering, Naruto felt a chill go down his spine as he saw an extremely furious Tsunade. Veins were popping up on the side of her forehead and she was emitting a red battle aura. Naruto, no, she started, then looked up, baka. After which mayhem followed. An old man in a nearby apartment. Damn kids, he grumbled, then immediately went back to sleep. Back to the present. This the genin team Miyagi asked for. The old man, who was dressed in a simple shirt and short combo, asked Tsunade. Hi, I'm there, Sensei. Tsunade, she replied with a bow. You have a task for us? She asked. The three genin had serious expression on their face. What could it be? Sakura thought. I bet it's a super cool mission. Naruto thought excitedly while slightly jumping up and down, bubbling with energy. Finally, a chance to test my skills. Now if only these two were not here, Sasuke thought. Miyagi led them to a house. Here is where Miyagi have you do tasks, as he gestured to the house. Wait here while Miyagi get tools, the old man said. He came out a few minutes later while carrying a bucket, some rags and a brush. You, he said while gesturing at Sasuke, you follow Miyagi. He then led Sasuke to a fence. He put the bucket down, then opened the bucket, revealing it to be paint. He then dipped the brush in the paint and handed it to Sasuke, who looked at it questioningly. First you paint fence, Miyagi said after a moment of silence. Sasuke suppressed a faceful, then grudgingly started to get to work, sloppily making strokes on the fence. Miyagi approached him again and said, all in wrist, Miyagi said while grabbing the brush, up, down, long stroke, and proceeded to paint the fence, up, down, he repeated. He then handed the brush to Sasuke, who attempted to imitate what Miyagi had done, bend your wrist. Downstroke, you bend. See. Good, Miyagi cryptically offered and then left, leaving a grumbling Sasuke. Oh, and don't forget to breathe. Miyagi decided to add as an afterthought. Miyagi came back a little later and pointed to Sakura, your turn. She was led into the house and handed here two objects that looked like bongos. Anyo, Miyagi-san, what do I do with these? Sakura asked, raising said objects in question. Funny you should ask, Sakura-san. Miyagi then stepped over to Sakura, grabbed one of the bongos, and placed it on the floor. Right circle, left circle, he said while moving the sanders in circular motions. Whole floor, right circle, Left circle. Don't forget to breathe. We're supposed to sand this entire floor. Go to hell, you old fart. Was shouted by inner Sakura. The real Sakura, however, restrained herself, and all that can be seen from her was that her left eyebrow was twitching. Knowing that it would be useless to complain, she grabbed the sanders and got to work. Naruto had been patiently waiting for his task and was relieved to see Miyagi come out of the house and approach him. He was not only bored, but being alone with Tsunade was kind of awkward for him right now. All right, Miyagi started, your turn. He then led Naruto to a room with a big square object in the middle that was covered by a cloth. I have most important task for you, he said, then removed the cloth, revealing an onyx table. Naruto was amazed, although why somebody would make a table out of onyx was beyond him. He could not help but be captured by its beauty and depth. Deciding to feel it, he ran a hand across its dark surface, finding it to be rather dusty. Miyagi then applied some kind of chemical on the rag and then placed the rag on the table. Now Naruto-san, do this. And then he made a circular motion with his right hand, after which was followed by his left hand that was also holding a rag. Do you understand, Naruto-san? Wax on, motion with right hand, wax off, and then followed by the left hand. Do this until table is sparkling, and with that, he left. Naruto only groaned in response. This is what I'm supposed to do? He asked himself. Maybe I'll get something better if I finish faster, he thought, and then made a cage bunshin to help him in his task. It's going to be a long day, Naruto thought before getting to work. Day 2. Tsunade looked at the assembled genin. Today, we will be figuring out your weaknesses and how to correct them. But first, a little exercise. She then approached a tree and started to walk up its side, eventually coming to a stop and hanging upside down from a branch. Naruto's eyes widened. How'd you do that, sensei? He questioned excitedly while jumping up and down. His companions, well, Sakura was surprised while Sasuke maintained a blank expression. Tsunade dropped from the branch and landed on 2 feet. She then threw 3 kunai near the 3 genin's feet. Channel Charka into your feet. Then run up the tree. Remember, too much or too little will result in not sticking to the tree. Mark the spot that you reached before falling. Begin. It was a few hours later and Sasuke and Naruto made repeated attempts to climb the tree. Naruto made a mark with his kunai and once again fell to the ground. Kuso. I gotta do this if I wanna become the next Hokage, he thought. He then looked up and saw Sakura, who was already sitting on the highest branch on the tree. Good work, Sakura, you can take a break now. The rest of you, continue, Tsunade said. It seems she has unbelievable Charka control but little stamina and Charka capacity. I'll wonder if. She thought as she watched Sakura take a seat at the base of a nearby tree. Sakura was panting when she plopped down at the base of the tree. She looked up to see Naruto approach her. Nay. Sakura-chan, do you have any hints on how to do it? He whispered. Sakura seemed to consider this for a moment before replying. You only have to concentrate and find the right amount of chakra, Naruto. Thanks, Sakura-chan. He replied before going back to the tree. It was almost night time when the two had reached the top of the trees that they were trying to climb. Naruto and Sasuke dropped to the ground. Good work, everyone, said Tsunade. That's all for today, dismissed, and so the day ended. Day 3. Tsunade looked at the aftermath with a twitching eye. How did it turn out like this? She thought while slapping a hand on her face. A blue-haired teenager was hauling what looked to be severed tentacles into a nearby trash can. Sakura was mopping a green, grimy substance from the floor, while Naruto and about 5 cage bunshins were sweeping small pieces of what looked to be skin and other parts that could not be identified. Sakura spoke up. I can't believe that such things existed, she said, then shuddered, thinking back to the creature they encountered. It was notable that there were several tears on her clothing. Yeah, replied Naruto, as he recalled the events that led up to the current situation. They had been asked to report to Amiko Mido for their mission that day. Turns out that the mission was to arrange and clean out said woman's storage house. The house was of pretty decent size and had been located in the outskirts of Konoha. They met with said woman and were led to the separate storage house and started to move objects around at the directions of Miko. "Nay, Sakura-chan, what do you think this is?" Naruto said while holding a small seal case with an intricate engraving on the cover in his hand. Sakura looked over Naruto's shoulder and stared at the seal case. "It's beautiful," she said in awe and reached out to touch the seal case. She never got to touch it though, because Naruto whipped around, nearly hitting Sakura in the process, and called out to Sasuke, "Oi! Oi! Look at this, Sasuke!" he shouted excitedly. Sasuke just continued doing his task and replied, "Shut up, Dobi." Naruto was about to shout something back, was cut off as he felt a chill go down his spine. The temperature in the room dropped considerably as Sasuke felt a chill go down his spine and watched as a shape rose from the ground. The shape turned out to be a humanoid and had toe horns on its head. Its face possessed two slanted eyes and a mouth that sported rows of sharp teeth. Most noticeable, however, were the many writhing tentacles attached to its back. "It's been so long since one of us has been summoned," the creature stated in a demonic voice, "so your target this time is," chimed with manic glee. The tentacles on the monster's back attacked towards Sasuke's direction. Sasuke immediately pulled out a kunai and started hacking the many tentacles that were attacking him, scattering the appendages on the floor. There were too many, however, and Sasuke soon found himself with his arms and legs bound. Where were Sakura and Naruto during this period of dire need? Well, it turns out that the tentacles seemed to be able to operate without the monster having to command them to. While the tentacles were busy with Sasuke, the main body was dealing with the duo of Sakura and Naruto. Naruto flew backwards into a stack of boxes due to a strong punch from the monster. Sakura threw a shuriken which only bounced off the monster's surprisingly hard skin. The monster moved with a speed that belied its size, and grabbed Sakura in a firm grip. It brought its face closer to Sakura's. "You look like a tasty little thing," it said, licking its lips in anticipation. "Get your filthy hands off of Sakura-chan," was shouted as Naruto, or should I say Naruto's, burst from the pile of boxes and started to head for the monster. The monster used two of its tentacles and batted away the offending cage bunchins, and then used one tentacle to grab the real Naruto and hold him up by the neck. It was at this point that Sakura noticed Sasuke, who was struggling in his bonds, but what shocked her was that he had been stripped down to his boxers. In any other time she would be drooling, but then it dawned on her what the monster planned to do. Thankfully though, a kunai cut through the air and embedded itself in the monster's eye. The monster turned to the source and found Tsunade, disgust clearly etched on her features. "What the hell do you think you're doing to my students?" Tsunade shouted. The monster pulled out the kunai from its eye and said, "Looks like another tasty one has appeared," and then straightened itself. "I'm going to enjoy doing yo," it said manically. Then launched its tentacles at Tsunade. Tsunade jumped and threw several kunai, severing the tentacles that held Sasuke and Naruto. The two mentioned quickly recovered and then started attacking the monster. Tsunade landed beside the monster, who was busy fending off Sasuke and Naruto. Tsunade grabbed its arm and pushed near the elbow joint, breaking its arm, causing it to howl in pain and effectively releasing Sakura. She maintained her hold on the arm and swung, throwing the monster out of the storage houses and into the courtyard of the house. The monster landed in a heap and righted itself. It roared and once again launched tentacles at the approaching group of Tsunade, Sasuke and Naruto. Tsunade threw a punch that tore into the monster's thick hide, followed by Naruto, who used his cage bunchins and tipped the monster over. The Naruto clones then launched the monster into the air where Sasuke was already making hand seals. Kaden. Ryuka no Jutsu. The stream of fire met the floating body and the monster met the flame and gave one final scream before dying. Sakura ran out of the storage house just in time to see the burnt corpse of the monster hit the ground. After placing what he swept up into the trash can, Naruto turned to an approaching and fully clothed Sasuke. "By the way, Sasuke," he then paused, a grin developing on his face. "I swear I saw you smile when that thing held you. Is there something we should know about?" he said, then giggled. Shut up, Dobi, Sasuke replied. He then turned to an equally shocked Sakura. Sasuke-kun, is that why you? Sakura trailed off. Was the only response she got as Sasuke started to walk away from the Mito house and back towards Konoha proper. Anyway, since this mission is officially over, we will be heading back to Konoha now, Tsunade said. I'm sorry for the trouble and thank you again, a beaming Miko said. End day 3. After that mission, Tsunade started to notice a pattern after that. It was that mangaka who wanted to make a manga about Naruto, then after that crazy guy that used strings, what the hell has happened to Konoha? Tsunade thought to herself, because after meeting the people that now resided within Konoha, she wondered if Konoha was better off at war. Now here she was, about to receive what might be another mission involving some nutcase. She and Team 7 were waiting for their assignment when Naruto spoke up. Oi Jii-chan, while pointing at the Hokage, give us a tougher mission. The ones you've been giving us so far are not fit of the future Hokage. Show some respect when in Hokage-sama's presence. Sakura shouted before her fist met Naruto's head. So, you want a tougher mission? Sandaime said after taking a puff of his pipe. This should be suitable enough, he said while handing Tsunade a scroll. See rank. All you have to do is escort Tazuna-san back to his home in Wave Country. After saying that, an obviously drunk man entered. This is the team that's gonna be escorting me. He slurred, then brought his face closer to Naruto's. They're just a bunch of snot-nosed brats, he said. Nani? Naruto shouted after seeing the look on Tazuna's face. Anyway, we will be taking this mission, Tsunade said while restraining Naruto. All right, meet at the East Gate in 30 minutes, Tazuna said. Hi, Team 7 replied. Zuzuku. I'm still alive. Please read and review. Comments and suggestions are welcome. Hanashi Talk. A small reminder that this story might be Naruto, Tsunade. Team 7 was quiet as they walked along the trail to Wave Country. They were walking single file, Sasuke in front, Naruto in the middle while Tsunade, Tazuna and Sakura brought up the rear. Nay, Tazuna-san, what kind of place is Wave Country? Naruto asked. Tazuna took a swig of sake then replied, well, it used to be a pretty nice and quiet place, cool winters and slightly hot summers, pausing for a moment and taking a swig from his sake then continuing, it was actually very nice until that bastard Gedu came, he said angrily. He's responsible for the sad state that our country is in now, the people are oppressed, a lot of people are suffering. This is where the bridge comes in, he said. The bridge is the critical factor which will allow us to gain independence from Gedu, he finished explaining. That's what you people are for, make sure you guard me and my workers well. You can leave it to us. Naruto replied and thumped his chest in a gesture of pure confidence. Are you kids really gonna be able to protect us? Tazuna slurred. Why do you keep doubting us, Tazuna-aken? Naruto asked and then placed his hand on his hips and stood haughtily. There. Nothing to worry about. You're with Konoha's future Hokage. Tazuna just gave him a blank look then said, huh. I dunno what you're talking about and what's this, Hokage, thing you saying? Tsunade spoke up. Hokage is the title that we bestow upon the head of the village. As you know, the land is divided into 5 major countries. Stone, fire, wind, water and lighting. Tazuna nodded. Well, each country supposedly has its own ninja village which is run by a kage. Each kage is responsible for the welfare of his village, she finished explaining. Sakura and Naruto's thoughts drifted towards their kage. That lame old geezer didn't look that great. Inner Sakura thought. Definitely not that great, Naruto thought as he recalled that the times that the old man had fallen prey to his no jutsu. Both of you just doubted Hokage-sama right now, didn't you? Tsunade deadpanned. Sakura and Naruto quickly shook their heads. No, we didn't, Sensei, they replied. Okay then, Tsunade replied and urged the group onwards. The team continued walking until Naruto suddenly stopped. There's something there, he said then threw a kunai into a nearby bush. Hearing it hit something, Naruto immediately went to investigate, only to find a poor bunny stuck to a trap. Naruto immediately broke into tears and started hugging the bunny close to him. "I'm sorry, Bunny-chan," wailed while rubbing the bunny up and down his cheeks. The group bisweeted while Naruto, finally clamming down, laid down the bunny and let it go. The group decided not to comment on it and continued their march. The group passed a small puddle of water that Tsunade looked at strangely but continued walking nonetheless. A few seconds later, a head rose from the small puddle of water. The head then left the puddle accompanied by the body and then made a dash for Tsunade, followed by another shape that was connected to it by a chain. Tsunade turned around to see the approaching and gasped in surprise as the chain wrapped around her. The team watched in horror as their sensei was ripped apart. "Tsunade Sensei!" Naruto and Sakura shouted. "One down," one of the masked figures said. The two figures then dashed at Naruto, intent on making him experience the same fate as their earlier victim. Naruto only watched frozen as the demon brothers came at him. I can't move, Naruto thought as he watched the two approach. A foot lashed and kicked the attackers, knocking them aside. Naruto saw that his savior was none other than Sasuke. A shuriken thrown by Sasuke caught the demon brother's chain and then nailed it to a tree. "Che!" Guzu said. Something clicked and the chain separated itself from the gauntlets on the brothers' arms. Deciding that dealing with the target would be faster, the two headed for Tazuna. "I have to do it," Sakura chanted mentally as she watched the two ninja approach. "Stay back, Tazuna-san," she shouted as she placed herself between Tazuna and his attackers. Sasuke appeared in front of Sakura with a kunai ready and watched the incoming clawed hand of one of the demon brothers. The attack never came as Tsunade suddenly appeared in front of Sasuke and placed the two attackers in a headlock. "Sorry for the wait," Tsunade said. She did not see one of the brothers make a flicking gesture that sent a barely visible needle right into the side of Tazuna's neck. Tsunade tied up the two Chunin and spoke to them. "Who sent you?" she asked sternly. She was met with a defiant stare which soon turned into a blank and lifeless one. Tsunade placed two fingers onto the neck of the captive. Detecting no pulse, she threw the bodies into a nearby bush and went back to her team. She stopped in front of Naruto and looked down at him. "I'm disappointed in you, Naruto-kun," she said. "Yo!" Sasuke called out as he approached Naruto. "Are you hurt, scaredy cat?" he said with a confident tone. Naruto seethed and silently swore, "Next time, I'll prove that I'm the better ninja." Then followed after the group. It was after a few minutes that the group noticed Tazuna walk slightly weak. They first attributed it to the sake until Tazuna eventually collapsed. Tsunade immediately placed a hand on his forehead. "He's burning up," she stated and performed a scan of his body. "Poison," she concluded. She placed down her pack and started pulling out supplies. "Sasuke, get me some water. Naruto, gather all the sleeping badges that we have with us. Sakura, come here and help me," she barked out. The genin moved to comply with her orders. Naruto and Tsunade laid Tazuna down on the assembled sleeping bags. Tsunade handed two vials and a small cup to Sakura. "Mix these two," she ordered, and Sakura started to work. Chakra then became visible on Tsunade's hand and she ran it across Tazuna's body, found it. She thought as she located the most vital spot. "Good, it hasn't spread too far," then pushed her hand down, causing Tazuna to thrash about wildly. "Hold him down," she told Naruto. Naruto hastily made a cage bunshin which assisted him in holding Tazuna down while Tsunade performed the procedure. Sasuke returned, a canteen full of extra water ready. Tsunade then raised her hand and something of a dark substance trailed with it. She dropped the substance into a nearby wooden dish that had water in it, courtesy of Sasuke. "Sakura, have him drink the mixture." Sakura raised the cup, filled the mixture to Tazuna's lips, and his face seemed to ease. Naruto then took a spare cloth from his pack and soaked it with water from his own canteen, wringed the excess water out, then placed the cloth on Tazuna's forehead. "Is Tazuna-san going to be okay?" Sakura asked. Tsunade smiled and then said, "He'll be fine," she stated as she proceeded to clean up the stuff she put out. "I was able to extract the poison and whatever traces of it should be destroyed by the mixture you prepared," Tsunade said. She then addressed the three genin. We'll be camping here for tonight. The genin nodded in acknowledgement. Night had fallen and Tsunade had decided to take first watch. After throwing a stick into the fire, she looked around and noticed that there were only 3 sleeping forms on the ground. Where did that Baka go? Baka, meaning Naruto, who was currently missing from their campsite. She stood and followed his tracks to a nearby clearing which had a river running near it. She was a bit surprised at what she saw. There stood Naruto with his jacket off. He is in a loose stance and hasn't noticed Tsunade's presence yet. Some kind of signal went off and Naruto flew into a dance of punches and kicks. Tsunade could tell that he did not excel in taijutsu, and also some of the moves were done wrong, but in each and every subtle movement and hard strike, she could feel the raw power that is waiting to be unleashed. Your form needs work, she said, indicating her presence to Naruto. Naruto fell on his butt before throwing the final kick to the kata. It's none of your business, he said with his back turned to Tsunade. Believe it or not, it is. I'm your sensei, she said, poking Naruto's forehead, holding back her strength as she did not want to injure Naruto. As if you'd know better, Naruto said while rubbing his lightly sore forehead. As a matter of fact, I do, Tsunade replied with a confident tone. She then walked towards the river and stood upon its surface, shocking Naruto a great deal. She then blurred into a complex series of motion that ended with a somersault and landing on the surface of the river, causing several ripples to form from underneath Tsunade. Naruto stared agape and wide-eyed. Tsunade waved a hand in front of Naruto to see if anybody was home. Naruto recovered and asked, Anyo-sa, how'd you do that, sensei? Do what? Tsunade asked as if she did not know what he was talking about. That water walking thing, Naruto said excitedly. Nay, can you teach me that? Since I'm in a good mood, I'll teach you, Tsunade replied casually. Yosha, Naruto shouted. Okay, listen carefully, Tsunade said, getting Naruto's full attention. First, gather charka in your feet, then, Tsunade demonstrated by walking on the surface of the water again. Balance the amount of charka released with your body weight and you will float, and swept her hands out, like so. Naruto nodded in understanding. Alright, gather charka in your feet and balance the amount released with my body weight, right? Right, Tsunade replied. Naruto made a handseal and then proceeded to try and walk on the water, only to fall into the river. The river was not that deep, so it did not make any noisy splashing sounds due to Naruto's failed attempts. Tsunade watched as Naruto slowly got the hang of the water walking technique. He's already figured out this much, she thought, shocked at how fast Naruto was able to learn the technique. I think I'm getting used to it, Naruto said as his feet slowly rose from being ankle deep in the river to resting on the surface. I did it, Naruto exclaimed as he did some back flips and cartwheels on the surface of the water. Oi Naruto, Tsunade called out, come here, I have to talk to you about something. Naruto approached Tsunade and asked, what's wrong, sensei? Tsunade looked Naruto straight in the eye and said, I know. You know, Naruto exclaimed in shock. About what? Tsunade fell over. She then stood up and coughed. I know about your secret, she stated in a serious tone. Naruto suddenly started sweating heavily. WH, what secret are you talking about, sensei? He stuttered out in a nervous tone. That you are the container for the Kyuubi, Tsunade replied. This new information hit Naruto like a punch from his beloved Sakura-chan, painfully. How did you find out? He asked with a weak tone. Sarutobi sensei told me, she said while approaching Naruto. He told me about how you were hated by almost the entire village and that not a single child was allowed by their parents to play with you. Oh, so you hate me now too, don't you? Naruto replied, his voice cracking with tears threatening to burst from his eyes. No, I don't. Naruto was then surprised as he was enveloped in a hug. I think you're a hero, Naruto-kun. It's just that most of those fools in the village do not understand, Tsunade said while rubbing Naruto's back. Sensei, Naruto croaked before returning the hug and proceeding to cry on Tsunade's shoulder. After a few minutes, Tsunade stood up, followed by Naruto. Anyo saw. Naruto, Tsunade started. Nani? Naruto asked. May I see the seal? Then Tsunade quickly added, but you don't have to show me if you don't want to. It's alright, I don't mind, Naruto replied as he proceeded to take his pants and jacket off, leaving him clad in his boxers and shirt. In the bushes was an extremely curious Sakura who had just gone to answer the call of nature, stumbled upon Naruto and Tsunade's talk. What are they doing? She thought as she observed what appeared to be Naruto taking his jacket off. Don't tell me there, she presumed after seeing Naruto take off his pants, revealing plain white boxer shorts. They are, she once again presumed. Sakura's curiosity was triggered again as she heard Tsunade say, it's so big. While what Tsunade meant the size of the seal, Sakura interpreted it as something different entirely as she could only see Naruto's back. May I touch it? Was heard by Sakura, causing her to almost scream at the scandalous nature of it all. Okay, was Naruto's reply. Although she wished that she could get a better angle to see what was going on, she thought that it might give away her position. She decided to have one last look. She vaguely saw Tsunade's hand reach for Naruto's stomach. It was dark so she couldn't tell. What she heard, however, nearly made her scream. Ouch! Naruto cried out. Tsunade panicked slightly. Sorry, did I hurt you? She asked. No, it's okay. The pain will pass, came Naruto's weak reply. Sakura's brain decided that this was too much information and decided to shut down, causing her to faint. Suaku. Sakura. A voice called out to her. Who's there? She asked, seeing nobody amid the field of flowers. She looked around and spotted a figure in a clearing, Sasuke-kun. She stated after approaching and getting a good look at the figure. Sakura, replied the figure that Sakura presumed to be Sasuke. I have to tell you something, he stated while turning to face her. What is it, Sasuke-ku? But Sakura never got to finish the statement as she was suddenly enveloped by Sasuke's arms. She looked up and was met with Sasuke's deep onyx eyes, which just caused her to melt into his arms further. Sakura, I've never gotten the chance to tell you this, but I love you, the dream, Sasuke said huskily. Sakura almost fainted at those words and was barely able to reply, I love you too, Sasuke-kun. She then closed her eyes and raised her head in order to kiss Sasuke. Surprised that no kiss came, she opened her eyes and was greatly surprised to find herself strapped to a chair. Gone was the field of flowers and was replaced by a black environment that had a red moon in the sky. Sasuke-kun. Sakura asked the figure in front of her, what's happening? She asked fearfully. In this space called the Tsukiyomi I control everything, the figure stated. The horizontal, and took a step forward, the vertical, another step, but enough about that. Did you think I would like someone with a big forehead like yours? Sasuke stated with venom. Now prepare for the ultimate punishment, he said. Then all of a sudden, there seemed to be hundreds of Sasukes, the million Dakapan, after saying which, one of the Sasukes approached Sakura and flicked her forehead, causing her to emit a small cry of flicking, continued with another Sasuke coming to replace the previous one. Stop, please, Sakura cried out amid the many and continuous flicks to her forehead. Sakura, Sakura, a voice she could barely hear amidst the cold and cruel laughter of the Sasukes. Sakura woke up all sweaty and came face to face with Naruto, who was giving her a worried look. Are you okay, Sakura-chan? You looked like you were having a bad dream, Naruto asked within a worried tone. Sakura gathered her wits and looked around. Seeing no incoming fingers, she let out a long sigh of relief. Yeah, I'm okay, Naruto, no need to worry, she replied and gave Naruto a genuine smile. Don't worry, Sakura-chan. If anything tries to hurt you, just call me and I'll be there in a flash. Naruto exclaimed while posing dramatically for effect. Thank you, Naruto, Sakura meekly replied with a blush on her face. Oi, we've been delayed long enough. We have to hurry to Wave Country. The voice of a fully recovered Tazuna broke the moment between the two of them. So it was that after a few minutes, Team 7 and their client packed up camp and resumed their march. We will have to take a boat to Wave Country, then it's just an hour's walk from where we docked to the village proper, Tsunade said as they approached a dock of sorts, where a boat was already waiting. Oi Tsunade, you're late, the boatman yelled out. We ran into a bit of trouble on the way here, Tsunade replied, but they took care of it, he said and gestured towards Team 7. Are these really ninja? The boatman asked in an annoyed tone. They're just a bunch of smelly-looking brats. Naruto bristled at the comment but was stopped by Tsunade, who replied to the boatman, please give my team a chance to prove ourselves. They are very capable ninja, then continued in a slightly angrier tone, we are already doing a great service by doing this mission at a reduced price since the mission was previously C class but has now been upgraded to a class because of the involvement of enemy ninja. She then turned her back and addressed the two men again, or would you like us to leave instead? She asked in a challenging tone. Tsunade suddenly hit the boatman on the head, don't worry you idiot. They're really good. I saw them in action earlier and I swear they were holding back. Now just shut up and get us there. The boatman complied and waited for everyone to get on board. The mist is so thick, Sakura commented. It's usually thick this season, the boatman replied as he continued urging the board onwards. We're almost there, he said. The group disembarked at the nearby shore. You guys better kick Getu's ass, the boatman exclaimed. Count on it, Asen, Naruto replied. I'll meet you at the village Tsunade, the boatman said and once again disembarked. All right, Tsunade replied. He then straightened his pack and turned to address Team 7 inches about an hour's walk north of here is my village, near that is the bridge, and then started walking. Getu and his men may be lurking about so keep your guard up. Team 7 nodded in unison and proceeded to follow Tsunade through the road. What? Tsunade said irately when Tsunade placed her hand on his shoulder. Tsunade made a ing gesture, indicating for Tsunade to keep quiet, then raised her hand, her palm facing Naruto and the others, who stopped and then quickly positioned themselves in a triangle around Tsunade. Tsunade stood about a foot away from Tsunade, eyes closed, trying to feel out any possible chakra signatures. Her eyes suddenly snapped open and she shouted to the others, as she saw a huge blade hurtling towards their position from the thick mist. Strangely, however, Tsunade did not like the rest of them but instead extended one arm and caught the projectile by the hilt. The force of stopping the sword made Tsunade move back a few inches, leaving small trails on the ground. After recovering, she then used the broad side of the blade to deflect 3 more kunai that came hurtling out of the mist. Quickly spinning around, she then threw the sword like a javelin, causing it to pierce cleanly through one of the nearby trees. Team 7 and Tsunade were surprised as a camouflage cloth dropped down and revealed a figure who was impaled to the tree, a person who suddenly turned into water which spilled all over the ground. Clap, 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 was heard, effectively gathering the entire party's attention. They all turned to the source of the clapping and found a man standing on one of the many branches that the tree where the sword was impaled. Those are some pretty good moves, Ojo-chan, the man said with a hint of amusement in his voice. Thanks, Tsunade replied with false gratitude as she watched the man drop down and balance himself on the flat side of the huge sword. And may I know who you are? She continued. You haven't heard of me. The man replied with just a hint of surprise in his voice. He then pulled out his sword and held it at his side in a relaxed manner. Then there's no need to introduce myself, as I'll be killing you anyway, he said, and then quickly darted towards Tsunade's position, sword in a ready position to slash down and cut Naruto and the others. Clang. The sword was stopped in mid-slash by Tsunade, who used her arm guards to block the humongous sword. You've some monstrous strength there, Ojo-chan, the man said while trying to press the sword forward. He stopped though when he felt a kunai near his neck. He turned around slightly and saw another Tsunade. It's best not to underestimate me, the second Tsunade replied. The man chuckled a little and then replied, I would say the same thing to you, before suddenly turning into water and falling spilling on the ground. That one's a fake too, Naruto shouted from his position near Tsunade. Too naive, Ju-chan, was heard as Tsunade saw the man appear behind her and swing his sword sideways, intending to cleave her in half. Tsunade under the swing and threw an uppercut in response. It did not connect as the man back flipped and then embedded his sword in the ground. He then used the handle of the sword as a pole and swung himself to kick Tsunade in the stomach. Tsunade flew back and fell into a small lake that was there. Sensei. Naruto and Sakura shouted from their positions. The man withdrew his sword from the ground and ran towards the lake where Tsunade had fallen in. He stopped as he saw that the ground was littered with barely visible makebishi. It's no use, he said and jumped onto the surface of the water. Makebishi are also known as caltrops. The man scanned the lake for any signs that Tsunade was hiding in it. Tsunade suddenly burst from the water and proceeded to attack the man. She threw a right hook which was hastily blocked by the man using his sword. The man slid across the surface of the water, thrown back by the force of Tsunade's blow. What the hell? He thought as he saw the fast approaching Tsunade. He quickly drew his sword and slashed diagonally at Tsunade, who simply backhanded the sword, causing it to fly off and effectively disarm the man. Tsunade then threw a straight punch which to her surprise went through its target. Another Mizu Bunshin. Tsunade thought and quickly tried to retract her hand, but it was too late. The clone started to reform itself into a sphere which then enveloped Tsunade. You had me worried there for a bit, Ju-chan, the man stated as he held the sphere of water containing Tsunade at an arm's length. I haven't seen someone with that kind of strength since I fought against the number 1 of a 7. Since you gave me such a good fight, I'll give you the honor of knowing my name, Class B Missing Nin, Momochi Zabuza, he said. Tsunade glared at Zabuza from inside her prison. Don't worry, I'll get back to you, but first. He then made a Hanseal Mizu Bunshin no Jutsu. Let me finish that team of yours. From his position, Naruto watched as the clone rose out of the water and made a beeline towards their position. I have to save Tsunade sensei. He thought while watching the fast approaching clone. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu and 2 other Narutos appeared by his side. With a battle cry, all 3 Narutos attacked the Zabuza clone at once. The first Naruto clone disappeared in a poof as the Zabuza clone's sword cleaved through it instantly. The other clonek got in close and threw a punch which was easily blocked and was instantly dispelled, courtesy of a well-placed kick. The real Naruto threw a kick aimed at Zabuza's midsection, but said kick was effortlessly grabbed and Naruto found himself looking at Zabuza while upside down. I see that you can use Kage Bunshin, interesting, but, he started, not enough. And threw Naruto back towards Tazuna. Sasuke decided to capitalize on the temporary distraction and threw 5 shuriken towards the Mizu Bunshin. The Mizu Bunshin only continued forward, deftly blocking said shuriken and throwing a punch to Sasuke's gut, sending him flying backwards. Sasuke-kun. Sakura shouted. Even Sasuke-kun was easily defeated, she thought. Kuso, Naruto said and slowly righted himself. I can't lose here. If I do, I won't be able to become Hokage. He directed his gaze at Sasuke. Sasuke. He shouted. Lend me your ear for a minute. Alert, Sasuke said after listening to Naruto's plan. Here we go, Naruto said and then formed a Hanseal, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A big poof later more than 20 Naruto clones appeared in the area. The mass of Naruto's charged forward, kunais drawn and as one, threw the kunai towards the Mizu Bunshin. The Mizu Bunshin blocked the kunai with its sword and then looked up to see the many Naruto clones bearing down on him, kunai drawn. As one, the Naruto clones thrust their kunai downward. The Naruto clones seemed to stay piled on the Mizu Bunshin, but after a few moments, the clones were knocked back and disappeared in puffs of smoke. It was at this point that Sasuke withdrew something from his pack. He unfolded it, revealing said object to be a Fuma Shuriken. He threw the shuriken just when the Naruto clones were knocked away. The Mizu Bunshin deflected the Fuma Shuriken but was destroyed when another Fuma Shuriken appeared out of nowhere and sliced cleanly through it. Zabuza watched in surprise as the second Fuma Shuriken headed for his position. He, avoiding the Fuma Shuriken, It was to his complete surprise though when said Fuma shuriken poofed, revealing Naruto. Naruto threw 5 kunai at Zabuza Kuso. Zabuza thought as he was forced to release his prison, effectively freeing Tsunade. But it didn't stop there, as one of the kunai that flew by turned out to be another Naruto clone. The clone withdrew its own Fuma shuriken and used its slash at Zabuza, who was forced to block, leaving him open to a bone-breaking punch to the chest. Zabuza swore he almost heard his ribs creak from the punch as he flew back. He righted himself and stood on the surface of the water Kuso. That hurt like hell, he thought. Drawing his sword, he prepared to face what looked to be one pissed-off Tsunade who was barreling down on him. Zabuza was on the defensive, blocking a kick aimed for his head using the broad side of his blade. He responded by throwing a backhand. Tsunade back-flipped away from the attack, scooping up some water along the way and throwing it at Zabuza. Zabuza thought that it was merely an attempt to blind him and darted forward, intent on slicing Tsunade in half. But to his surprise, the small droplets, which were only supposed to make light splashes on his body, made hard impacts, causing him to stop in his tracks. Ninpo. Mizu Dama, water bullets, Tsunade said with a smirk before dodging what would have been a decapitating slice from Zabuza's sword. Zabuza pressed the attack, slashing downwards with his sword, which Tsunade blocked with her armguard and then following up with a kick aimed at Tsunade's side. Tsunade was unable to block the kick and was knocked back a few feet. Quickly recovering, she saw that Zabuza had just finished making the hand seal for Tori. Suiden. Saryuden no Jutsu. And the water near him formed into a dragon which quickly rose and flew at Tsunade. Gotta time this right, Tsunade thought as she saw the incoming water dragon. She then jumped up, corkscrewing, and then extended an arm, the blue glow of Charka visible on her hand. She severed the head of the water dragon, effectively cancelling the jutsu and shocking all the onlookers, Zabuza included. Zabuza overcame the shock and once again started making hand seals. Tsunade ran towards him, intent on stopping the jutsu. Finishing, Zabuza shouted out, "Suiden! Daibakufu no Jutsu." The water surrounding Zabuza formed into a huge ball and was launched at Tsunade. Tsunade faced the incoming ball of water, a look of determination of her face. This is going to hurt later, she thought, and charged at the incoming projectile. Konoha Ryu. She started. Getsu Jerry. She then made a spinning kick which sent out what looked to be a crescent of pure Charka. The crescent sliced through the jutsu and continued towards Zabuza, who received the full brunt of the attack and sent flying into a tree. Tsunade looked up from her kneeling position just in time to see 3 needles impale into the side of Zabuza's head. Who? She started but never got to finish as a person in a mask appeared and approached Zabuza's body. "Thank you for the help," the person started. "We have been after him for a few years." Kurigakure extends its thanks, and with that, the figure disappeared. "Sensei," was said by Naruto after arriving at Tsunade's side. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. "I'm fine, Naruto," Tsunade managed to say in between ragged breaths. "You handled yourself pretty well. I'm proud of you," she managed to get out before collapsing on the water and slowly sinking. "Sensei," was shouted by all 3 members of Team 7 as they saw Tsunade collapse. "This should be far enough," a masked figure thought as he slowed to a stop. The masked figure carried none other than Momochi Zabuza, who still had 3 needles embedded in the side of his neck. "Time to cut off the masked figure said as he pulled a pair of scissors and lowered to Zabuza's face. "That won't be necessary," said the surprisingly alive Zabuza said after grabbing the hand which was inches away from his face.